So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the session on deep dive into open source. And we are so happy to have Santhosh Yadav, sir. He's a Google developer expert for Angular and the first GitHub Star from India. Uh, Welcome to the session, sir. Uh,
Thanks.
and,
Thank you.
and I welcome all the participants as well. Over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite, Advait. Hey everyone. Thanks for joining on Saturday. Today we are going to talk about open source, how you can start contributing to open source, and why you should. Right. We will also discuss about it. In case you have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and I'm sure Advait will share it with me so I can answer those. To start with. Uh, Advait already gave information about me, but in case you want to reach out to me, these are my social media handles which are available. So you can reach out to me on Twitter or GitHub or even LinkedIn. So I'm available with same username on LinkedIn as well. You can go to santhoshadav.dev and you will be able to find more details about me. I also run a YouTube channel called Tech Talks, or you can say a show called Tech Talks with Santhosh, where we generally live stream every Friday night with some of the industry experts, and we discuss about different technologies, different topics altogether. So, in case you are interested, feel free to join every Friday. Uh, Most of the time it is 10 p.m. IST, but depends. I mean, sometime it changes, but you can go ahead and find the details about it on same Santhosh Yadav Dev. Santhosh Yadav.dev, and you can just go to Tech Talks with Santhosh. There is a menu, and you will be able to find the upcoming shows. So that's about me, and that's about the Tech Talks with Santhosh, which I'm driving from last few months. I started that in July. So let's start with open source, right? And how you can start contributing to open source, and at the end we will discuss about why you should. First thing first, whenever you start, you think of like contributing to open source. This is how everyone is, right? So I was at the same place a few years ago. So whenever I used to think, okay, let's start contributing to open source, I was scared. So I was always scared. So you need to first take your first step. So go ahead and meet few people. I would suggest the best way to actually start contributing to open source is meet few people who are already doing it, get some feedbacks or get some ideas right from them. So this is what I did, and this is part of my journey as well in the slides. So I was scared at first. I thought maybe this open source contribution is not for me. These are something which many experts do. Maybe I won't be able to actually do it, or maybe I can fail. So the biggest fear everyone has is the failure, right? The fear to fail, which is good, I think, which is a learning, but we are scared. So let's see how you can start contributing your open source, start contributing to any open source project. So the first and easiest thing to do, in case you work on any technology, what you can go ahead and do is on Stack Overflow, there are like many questions which are available and needs to be answered. So what you can go ahead and do is you can start actually answering those questions on Stack Overflow. So this is one of the this is the link which I have given right now. It's for Angular, but most of the technology, if I talk about, let's say, HTML, JavaScript, even React, they have a tag as well. So you can just replace Angular with whatever technology you are comfortable with or you work in, and you will be able to see all the list of questions. But how it leads to open source, I mean, of course I can just go ahead and create my Stack Overflow account, start answering, but where is the open source contribution which we're talking about? So a lot of time it happens that there are few questions which are generally a bug in the system itself, in the, let's say, Angular or React or anywhere, right? So it's a bug, and most of the developer prefer raising an question on Stack Overflow rather than GitHub. Remember that. Most of the developers. It's not like me and you are only doing that. Even whenever you have some question, right? So the first thing you do is you go to Stack Overflow and raise a question, right? So of course everyone does that. So in case you figure out, okay, this is an issue in the framework itself, and maybe you can just raise a PR and it leads to an open source contribution, right? So even you can just open the issue on GitHub I mean, testing something is also counted as a open source as a contribution. We'll discuss about that later on in the slides. But yeah, so how you can lead, how it can lead to the open source contribution is, of course, you go ahead and pick up the question, and if you figure out, okay, this something is in the system, in the framework itself, you can just go ahead and raise a PR. But remember, it's not easy to go ahead and change even a single line of code in a huge code base like Angular or React, or for example Vue, right? So what are the other ways you can write? You can, of course, start writing blog posts, and whatever you have learned, you can just share that with community. So there are multiple platforms which are available. You don't have to necessarily create your own platform. You can just go to dev.to, which is a platform created for like it's an open source platform created for developers. You can just go ahead and start writing your whatever you learn, right? So you can just start writing there. Or in case you are really good at creating videos, probably, so what you can do is you can start creating contents on YouTube. How it leads to open source contribution, of course, I'll discuss about it later on. So this is YouTube, and we also have a platform called indepth.dev, where we are also looking for a lot of writers. So in case any one of you is interested, or if any one of you are actually interested to write about any technology related to front end, so feel free to actually send me a draft of your article, and we will get it reviewed, and you will get it onboarded, or get you onboarded on indepth.dev. So this is another way. Start writing blog post. I think this is the easiest thing which you can do in whatever you learn, right? So start converting them to blog. A lot of developers think so. This is one question a lot of developers might have, or a lot of students might have. Most of the topic you pick is already written by someone. Remember, everyone has their own way to write, or to tell others how they learned it. So this is the same thing which you have to do. So what you have to do is, the way you learned it, just go ahead and write. Make sure that you are giving the I mean, you're just mentioning from where you learned, right? So in case you are just repeating the same thing, just make sure that you are also mentioning, okay, this is the blog post which I referred, and then I came to know about this, so this is how it works. So of course, that's a learning. Maybe it can be useful for others. Don't think that if this topic was already written, why should I write it again? Don't think that. Meetups, I'm sure a lot of students I have seen, they are part of some meetups or some group, like DC is one of the I think one of the largest group in India. Then there are students club for other technologies. For example, Microsoft also has student club. So get involved with some tech, some community, right? So which is available there. How you can actually grow there? So of course, once you become part of any community, you start going to the community, start helping them, and as you do that, right, so you get to interact with a lot of other developers, and you may actually just brainstorm and create some new open source project, right? So you have something in your mind. Then most important thing when it comes to the open source thing is collaboration. You Most of the time you will be like laid back, and you will think, okay, I will do it in case I have some help. So from where to get that help? Go ahead and get involved in some community meetups, these student clubs. Go ahead and talk to people, right? Go ahead and talk to people, put your ideas. Okay, this is the thing. Do you think it will be I think good open source project, or it can actually value something to some projects? So recently I met few students from actually India, who were actually doing some great amazing things. So one was James, who has written a Maven CLI. I was really impressed, and even I did a small contribution in his project as well. So they are doing it, and that's pretty impressive, right? So lot of students are actually taking a lead, and they have started already contributing to open source, creating open source projects. So Maven CLI is one. There was another one of the developer who created static site generator, which was really impressive. I mean, at the age of 20, you are creating a static site generator. And to be frank, I feel proud whenever I see some Indian doing that. Of course, I mean, we have a lot of great developers in India, and we don't do that much innovation, right? So whenever you think you have something in your mind, go ahead and discuss with your community, the students in your community, and then see if you can actually take some time out of your maybe studies and start building something, right? It takes time. Remember, everything takes time. Even if it's like you started a project, it is taking time, 6 months, 1 year. That's absolutely fine. The only thing is, let once you have started, make sure that you finish it. Okay, so and more people will get involved once they see the value, right? So another thing which I will mention is, whenever you are creating something, release in smaller parts, right? So any open source projects, try to release in smaller parts. Don't think about a big picture. Small parts, keep releasing it. It's open source, you are doing it for like helping the community, and if help community sees any advantage or any uh, if it is helping them, they will also get involved, and of course new feature will come into picture, right? But again, what in case I don't want to create my own? I just first, let's say I want to get involved with some projects like Angular or React or any Vue.js. There are a lot of projects available there, right? So even Python has many open source projects, or if I go to JavaScript also has many open source projects. If I want to get involved with them, you can do? So the easiest thing which I have figured out is, whenever you start learning a new technology, how you learn it? Probably you will go through docs, right? So you will go to docs and then you will see, okay, these are the steps which we need to follow. You can read, and in case you think that documentation is not proper, or let's say documentation is missing something, for example, let's take a simple example of Node.js. I'm sure most of you might be using Node.js, but do you think the documentation is 100% correct? It's not, right? I mean, it's a big framework. There are a lot of things which gets released daily. So what you can do is, you can actually go ahead and get involved in the documentation part. The easiest way to do it. So go to documentation, just follow things, whatever you want to learn, see if documentation is proper or not, or if there is anything which is missing from docs. Again, Stack Overflow, remember, on Stack Overflow, you may find some questions which also leads to changes in documentation. You may find, okay, this is the question which is asked by this particular developer, but why is he asking this question on Stack Overflow? So he can just refer to the docs. So you can just go to the docs and see if actually that particular topic is mentioned or not. If not, just go ahead and raise a PR, right? Improve the docs. So this is one way. This is how I started. So next is, I'm going to talk about how I started with Angular, right? So I started with docs. So once you go to Angular, there is an section where you can actually view the project structure, how your project structure looks like. So there is a structure for Angular libraries. So when I started contributing, I figured out, okay, there is no mention of Angular libraries. There is only project which is available. So I raised a PR, and it takes time, right? So for example, a lot of new developers are scared because they think, if I open my first PR and it won't be like, I don't follow the best practices, whatever they have mentioned in the docs, they will be angry, right? But this is where I was really I think I was really wrong about that impression, because once I started my contributing to the Angular and I raised my PR, there were many things which was new to me. Even I was not used to GitHub as well, so I was not aware of many commands which GitHub has. So it's not like Angular team kicked me out and said, okay, don't raise a PR because you are not aware of this specific command. I was aware of how to do git pull, git push, how I can merge things. But of course, there are a few more things which you have to do. For example, rebase. There are a few extra things which you might need to do in case you are contributing to open source projects like Angular. So they helped me with the commands. Okay, this is the command, you can go ahead and run from your terminal, and then you will be able to fix everything, resolve all the issues. Most of the open source projects, right? So they are really nice. Angular team has been one. I think they have set a benchmark, I would say. So they are helping new developers even to contribute. They are really nice to everyone. So this is how I started, right? So you can see I raised my first PR on March 18th, 2019, and it took around 8 to 9 days to get it merged. Of course, you cannot be available for entire 8 to 9 days. That's absolutely fine. Don't think that you have to finish a PR in a single day or maybe a week. Some PRs do take time. Few of my PRs got merged like after 3-4 months. That's absolutely fine. They value your time as well. So it's not like they will push you, okay, why you have not completed this PR. you have to complete or something like that. In case it's like breaking change or it is impacting the end customers, then they might actually go ahead and take the PR and try to merge it, which happens, which is very rare because a project like Angular, they have a lot of testing internally to make sure nothing breaks. But in case something breaks and it is, let's say, as a community member, you are involved in that particular issue, resolving that issue, they may actually take a lead and say, okay, look, we have to actually get it merged early. So if you can do it, otherwise we will just raise a PR and fix it. That's absolutely fine. But don't be bothered that, okay, you have to complete this PR in a single day or let's say 10 days time. It's not. So work as per your feasibility, right? So but try to complete the PR. That's the important thing. So don't leave it hanging, right? So if, when you started a PR and you think that, okay, I took this PR, but now the problem is I don't know anything about it. It's absolutely fine if you don't know anything about it. Just ask the team if they can help, right? So if they can help you debugging this particular issue, or they can guide to which code I have to refer, for example, to resolve this particular issue. They will be actually able to help you as well. There are a lot of open source projects. For example, one of the projects which I know is Hasura. So Hasura, I really like the way they actually drive that project. So in case some community member wants to get involved in the project, right? So they have some people, they can have one-on-one call with you, and they can help you resolving your first PR, right? So and once you get comfortable, of course, you will be able to proceed. But in case you need help, they are available. They can have a one-on-one call with you, and they'll be able to make sure that this particular thing is merged, or you actually get sufficient support to actually raise your PR, right? So everything is a lot of projects. I'm not just talking about Asura. There are a lot of projects which do that. So of course, that was regarding the PR. Most of the open source projects, the big projects, they have a release cycle. For example, Angular follows a release cycle of every 6 months. So you will find every 6 months a new version has been released. A lot of projects, they do weekly or daily releases. For example, in case they have any bug fixes, they will do it on based on their time availability, right? So it's not like there will be a release in 6 months. There can be a release in weekly, bi-weekly, 15 days, 1 month. And of course they need someone to test it. So who can test it? Of course they also have a very big team. They are writing all the test cases. But as a developer, you can also go ahead and help. And this is also something which leads to an open source contribution. Let me just tell you how. If you raise a issue, for example, let's say a new version of Angular got released and you figured out, okay, this is a new feature, let's try out this feature, right? If it works or not. And you figured out, okay, this feature does not work, go ahead and raise an issue, right? That's GitHub counts it as an contribution. So if you raise an issue and just go to your profile and you see that green dots, right? So you'll be able to see, okay, there is an actually contribution which is counted against raising an issue. So rather than actually going to Stack Overflow and asking if someone is aware of this, if you think that this is a valid issue and this new feature which was actually launched is not working properly, go ahead and raise it on GitHub. And if you think you can solve it, go ahead and do that. That's nothing better than that, right? So this is also something which can, of course, raising an issue as well as raising a PR. This is something which you can do. And a lot of projects, right? So it's not only Angular. Even if you are into React or Vue, they are not complete without the community ecosystem. So what are those community ecosystem I'm talking about? So for example, Angular has a lot of UI libraries which exist. For example, Angular Material, Nginx Bootstrap, NGRX, RxJS. So these are different libraries which is available inside. With different projects which a lot of developers use, right? Apart from Angular. Similarly, if I go to React has, I think there is something called as Material UI. If I go to Vue.js has something known as, there are multiple libraries again, right? In Vue as well. So it's not only about the specific framework I'm talking about. You can actually go to any particular library and you can start like reading the docs, improving the docs, contributing to any new feature, or you think if there is any bug fixes you can do, just go ahead and do that, because they don't generally get a lot of open source contributions, just because everyone is focused on Angular and not the library itself, right? But of course everyone uses those libraries, and and Angular is actually not complete without them. So you can just go to those libraries and see if you can just help them. For example, if I go to React, you have create React app, right? So that's CLI which is available. Even if I go to Vue, Vue has Vue CLI. You can just go to Vue CLI and you can contribute there, or the project which James is driving, which is Vue, I think Maven CLI. So which is for creating a Vue application with, there are multiple options which are available. I'll probably share a link with that with you as well. So you can just go to the project and look into it. It's a CLI. And if you think, if you found any issues, or if you think you can improve the docs, send a PR. Don't be scared to open your first PR. Just go ahead and raise it. I think everyone appreciates your time, because you are not doing it for money. You are doing it for like helping the community. You are doing it as a passion. So it's absolutely fine, right? Don't be scared. But what are the other ways? A lot of projects also need money. A lot of developers also need money, because they are doing open source like full time. They're investing their own time, and why they are doing it, right? So they are trying to help the ecosystem, right? So if, let's say, NGRX project, if, what in case every developer says, okay, I'm not getting any money out of it, let's stop supporting this project, what will happen? Or let's talk about any open source project. For example, Angular can survive, React can survive because it is driven by Google, it is driven by Facebook. But what about the open source projects which you use in daily in your life, and it is maintained by some other open source contributor, or maybe organization which is like primarily into open source, right? So how they will survive? They need some money, and this is where we have to actually go ahead and support this community as a whole, and make sure that there are multiple ways. I'm just showing you Open Collective. There are a lot of projects which take the donation via Open Collective. You can just go ahead and donate. In case your organization, or if you are using some open source projects inside your organization, this is the sad part of or sad reality of open source projects, that most of the organization, big organization, they use open source projects, but they don't give even a rupee back, right? So maybe they are earning millions, but they are not even giving 100 rupees to the open source projects. That needs to change. How it can start, of course, you as a developer, you can actually ask your project manager or someone that, okay, we are using this particular project, why don't we support it? Because they need money as well. Or if you think it is helping in your job, you can just go ahead and raise a PR, or you can just start contributing to them. For example, what I do is I contribute few dollars like monthly to few projects which I think they are helping me. For example, NGRX and Rollup. So I contribute like $5 a month, which is not a big money, right? So in case you are making like $100,000, just think, right? So if you are making $100,000 and you cannot give $5 back to the project which you are already using, or you are making money out of it, so I think everyone can do it, right? So this is one thing where we have to think about, that how you can make this open source environment or this open source project sustainable. So it starts from home, right? So rather than actually convincing your organization, which maybe will take time, in case you are using open source projects and you are working full time on a technology which is like primarily open source, just go ahead and support few projects, right? So if you go for a pizza party, you invest 1,000 rupees, right? So just like that. But from where that 1,000 rupee comes? That 1,000 rupee comes because there is an open source project which for which you don't have to pay anything. All the resources are free. You don't have to actually go ahead and invest your time creating things which you are just using it, right? So that's from where you're getting that 1,000 rupees. So if I'm sure you will be able to at least give 100 rupee back to that particular project, because it's saving your time. And other thing which you can do is you can also go to GitHub sponsors and start sponsoring some developers if you think they are helping you, maybe by creating some demos, by creating some open source projects, or they are working on some open source projects which is involved in your day-to-day life, or you are using at your workplace. Just go ahead and help them, right? So GitHub sponsor is again a good program, and right now it's only for developers, but I'm not sure in future they may be actually launch it for organizations as well. Open Collective is more on the organization level. So in case you have an organization and it's doing open source, you can actually connect it to Open Collective and people can donate. So, for example, the big projects like Webpack, Rollup, NGRX, or there are many more, right? So they rely on the donations only. And a lot of organizations are also donating. For example, if I go to Webpack, you will find Netflix donating some money, or some other organizations donating some money. So everyone is doing, the big organizations are doing their part, but I think everyone has to chip in. It's an open source era. Everything is, most of the things which are available nowadays is open source. And if the developers cannot sustain, I mean, they won't be able to earn something out of it. So it's really bad, right? So, but of course, what's in there for you? So let's say you did everything. You did open source contribution. You helped people on Stack Overflow. You created contents. You created videos. You went ahead and donated as well few dollars or few amount to the open source projects. But what's in there for you? Of course, there are many programs which is run by community, right? So large organization, for example, Google, Microsoft, GitHub, everyone has their own program to actually go ahead and recognize the people who are actually doing good things inside the community. They are helping open source contributor, or they are helping open source projects, or they're helping developers by creating some new tools. So I'll mention few programs which are available here. So Google Developer Experts, I'm sure being part of DSC, you are aware of the GDE program as well. So a lot of from India, I think there are around 50 to 60 GDEs who are from India. There are globally around 700 to 800 GDEs available. So Google recognizes developers in each category. For example, in case you are working in Go and you are doing good things in Go, right? For example, you are contributing to the Go repository, you are writing about Go, you are creating contents about Go, you can be recognized as a GDE for Go. Or you, in case you are doing it for Flutter, Kotlin, they have a lot of technologies available, right? So any technology you can pick and you can start contributing to it. And if you I mean, if someone from the community thinks that you are doing great, they can nominate you as Google Developer Expert. Maybe it can be any existing GDE, or it can be any program manager who is into who is managing that program, right? So it can be. Then GitHub recently launched this GitHub Stars program. They launched it in March 2020, and this is another way, right? So GitHub is also doing their part by actually recognizing the developers who are doing their best to make sure that open source is sustainable. They are making open source projects, contributing to it, actually talking about it. So this is another program which we have. MVP is the oldest program which you might have heard about. So Microsoft Valued Professional or Valuable Professional. It is, I think it started really, really long ago, when there was not even a single program which existed. So in case you are doing it is related to, like, say, Microsoft technologies, but they also have something for open source. So in case you think you are doing good for Microsoft technologies, any Microsoft technology, like it can be Azure, it can be C# or anything, right? So they have multiple technologies which are available, and you can just go ahead and contribute to them, and you can become MVP as well. So after doing everything, who became successful? It's you, right? I mean, you started it as a passion, but of course you got recognition as well, and at the end you will feel successful, that okay, I have done something for the community, and you will feel relaxed that okay, you have done your part as at least, right? So, and you can just go ahead and motivate few other people to do this, because everyone needs an example, right? So if I had to actually start contributing to open source, I needed someone as an example. So what I did is, actually I met someone from Google in one of the conferences, and he guided me, okay, how I can do it, and I got motivated and then started doing everything. Similarly, as a student, you also need someone to actually follow, or someone as a role model. So what you can do is go to talk to your community. See, I am sure there are many developers, many students who are like really good into the technology they work on, or they are learning right now, and you can just come together and create something, right? And or let's say you can start some open source project, or start contributing to some projects, right? You can discuss about it and what can be done better. Start thinking about features which can be helpful in that particular technology. Let it be Angular or even JavaScript, right? Even in JavaScript, you need to add new features. If you think there are few new features which you can think of, and it will be really helpful in the JavaScript ecosystem. Go ahead and suggest that as well, right? So this is how this is how start things start, right? I mean, uh, no one like goes to Google and start writing Chrome engine, right? So V8 engine. So people has to actually start from somewhere. This is how the big things happen. So this is it. I'm sure you might have learned something valuable from this particular session. In case you have any questions, feel free to ask, and or in case you don't have any questions right now, you can feel free to ping me on Twitter, or let's say GitHub, or I'm sure you won't be able to ping me on GitHub, but I'm available on LinkedIn as well. So you can also ask questions on LinkedIn.
Okay, guys. So if you have any questions, please put it on the chat section.
And don't think, I think you have a small question. I don't think so that any question is not, I mean, every question is worth answering. So if even if you think that that is a silly question, don't think about it, just ask.
Okay, sir. Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
So we all know that Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source, and so many people join GitHub and make their first contributions in October or in
Mhm.
October. But after that, they don't tend to continue that. I mean, they don't tend to continue, and
Yeah.
they are confused about where to contribute. Because in case of Hacktoberfest, we have so many beginner-level repositories, so they're confident. But
Mhm.
to take that next step, what should they do?
Okay, so this is where you have to differentiate between your passion and swags, right? A lot of developers, I get messages like what I need to do to get this particular swag. They never ask me, okay, what I need to do to become, let's say, GD, or what I have to do to become a GitHub star, right? So they directly come to swags. So a lot of developers in October do it for like swags. It doesn't work, right? So if your focus is swag only, you will be never be able to actually achieve that. When I started, it was my passion, so I just really wanted to give back to the community, right? So I wanted to, let's say, make sure that I'm earning from Angular, so I'm giving back to the Angular. So I started contributing. I went to the repositories, looked for the issues, and then started resolving it. Even my first open source contribution was not during this Hacktoberfest. It was way back in Feb 2019 when I started, and my first contribution was, I think, for NGRX project, and it was a code. It was related to some code related changes in the repository. And the only thing is, with only thing which I wanted to do is give back to the community, right? So because I was earning from last 10 years. By using all these open source technologies, but I never gave back. So I think if you have that mindset that you really want to do something for the community, that will continue. If you think that, okay, you just need swags, raise 4 PR, and that's done, right? That's it.
Okay, so we have some questions from the chat section. So can you share about your role model?
Okay, so when I started with Angular, before I was a .NET developer, so I had two role models. One was Scott Hanselman. So Scott Hanselman is a really great guy. So he also has a YouTube channel. So in case you are, I mean, you should go ahead and subscribe to it. He actually creates a lot of good videos for beginners as well. And the another one was John Papa. So I used to follow them when I was in .NET, and I never thought I will, of course, get chance to actually talk to John Papa. So I was invited on his podcast last year. So that was like dream come true for me, because I've been following him. I was a big fan of John Papa from long time. And when I started with Angular, there were like many people in the Angular community. So Deborah Kurata is of course one. So I used to admire her, and Then as I got more involved, there are a lot of people. I mean, I even cannot name. Probably you can just go to my Twitter handle and you'll be able to see a lot of Angular developers I follow. So they are really amazing people. So if I have to mention, of course, these three.
Okay. So we have another question like, what are the challenges faced by open source softwares?
Lot of challenges. Lot of organizations, they use open source projects, but when it comes to actually giving back or helping the developers, they don't do it. Remember, last, I will not name the organizations. I mean, mostly in India it happens that a lot of big organizations, they are making millions out of by using this open source technology. When it comes to blaming some technology, right, so they will just go ahead and say, okay, this technology was bad, so our project got failed. But when it comes to supporting that particular open source technology, they never do it. There are multiple ways you can do it. Lot of open source projects just couldn't survive because there were no one to actually go ahead and continue the development. What do you think? I mean, if I have a big organization which has like 10,000 developers and they are working on a product, don't you think they can just at least give 1% of their workforce towards supporting that project, which is like making millions for them? So this is one of the biggest problem which I have been talking about from long time. At least organization needs to actually think of that. Okay, the guy who is actually supporting that open source project, he's also a developer. Like he might have also have his full-time job somewhere. He's just doing it because that project might be helping him, or he just want to make sure that others can like benefit from that project, right? So at least organization need to understand that they can actually give 1% of their workforce towards like supporting some projects. Even there is a small team of 10 people, I think giving one developer who is focused on actually contributing to that particular project will be really grateful, really helpful. Even they have testers, right? I mean, most of the organization have like big team of testers. They can actually give like two testers out of their like thousands of testing team. Just go ahead and write test case for this particular project, right? These are the ways they can help if they don't want to support, maybe by providing some money. If they can do it, that will be good thing to do. So first thing is, of course, there is a lack of developers. Everyone thinks that okay, this project has a lot of open source contributors already. I was surprised when I started contributing to Angular. If you go to the repository, you will find there are like 100 or 1200 developers who are contributing, right? So you've seen contributions, how many developers are contributing to this project. But do you know that 1200 developers are from 2016 to 2020? At a particular release, in a particular release, you will not find more than 30 to 40 developers contributing to Angular. I'm talking about Angular. Angular is being used by millions of developers across the globe. So if not million, right, even like thousands of developers start contributing to the project, I think you will end up with very less issues in the project itself. So of course you need to organization needs to actually think about that as well as money. So in case they cannot provide maybe developers, they have to go ahead and say, okay, we will be providing some maybe $100, $200, whatever they can afford per month.
Okay, that was really great to hear, sir. So we have another question. How much of a big role does contributions in GitHub and other sites play as far as job interviews are concerned?
Okay, Govind. So this is really a good question because, of course, a lot of people do think about, okay, what in case they do open source contribution, how it is going to help them in their career. It has helped me. So I'm in front of you. I have struggled to get a job for like 10 years, and once I started contributing to open source, I don't have to do that. So most of the time, you will find there are people who are eager to actually work with you. So in case you are already known into the community, there are high chances that you will be preferred at some of the maybe organizations, right? Even if for applying for in Microsoft. So I was really demotivated when in 2018 there was a mail from Microsoft that they were looking for some front end developer, and I applied as well. And they had mentioned that they need some open source contribution. I was like, okay, I missed my chance, right? But I think that has helped me in over the last 2 years. I'm able to get the job without worrying much about interviews, I think. So it helps to just tell you, it helps. It helps a lot.
Okay, sir. Now we have another question. It's just a long one. Many companies with large investments in software development are entering the arena of free and open source software. How has this affected the development of open source software?
So a lot of developers have started actually doing this thing, right? So what they do is they actually create something. They actually do it for like based on how many people buy it, right? So this is something which I have seen like in last 2 to 3 years. So they create some project, they keep it on invitation based, so they will say, okay, I'm working on this project. Some open source developers, right, so who are like who have big names creating multiple products. So what they do is they create the product, they sell it to few customers, and they say this is my goal. So let's say they want to make sure that they get at least, let's say, 100K out of that project, and then they make it open source. So they don't make everything open source. Of course there are few features like the enterprise level features which they keep as paid. So it's like open source plus paid, right? So it's some parts which you get for free. For example, there are tools. For example, if I have to give an example, AG Grid is one of the most widely used grid which is available, and it is available for different technologies like, for example, Angular, React, Vue. So what they do is they create some. They have their of course code base available, and there are few parts which are open source, you can go ahead and use it. But there is something which is paid as well, but they don't give the entire code base to the developers, so it's not available, you cannot contribute. So there are few projects which are like they are still available on GitHub. They work like they have internal private repository where they have most of the code base, and then there is a public repository where they have just free features which are available. So this is also people do, and I think it is helping developers as well to learn something new, because how you will learn coding, right? So of course you need some references, and these big projects are like good reference for you. I remember when I started doing coding, like back in 2008, there was nothing called open source. I mean, I think the only open source technology which was available was Java, and I was really not interested into Java. So now the one advantage which we get by like open source projects is you have the reference. So in case you get some issue, what you can do is just, okay, you can just go to this particular repository. For example, if I need something, I want to create my own toolkit, I can go to Angular material and see how they have done it and follow the same and create my own.
So we have another question like, can you please share your journey towards a GD?
Okay, so I have spoken about it a lot of times. So there are a few interviews which are available as well. So when I started my open source contribution back into 2019, I was not even aware of what GDE is. So because my focus was not getting some rewards, my focus was more on like let's I have made money. I'm earning good money now, and I'm not giving back anything to the community, right? From or giving back to the project from where I learn. Because as a child, I was always raised as my father always used to say, right? So don't take anything for free. Even you. So even as a kid, I remember whenever I used to go to shops and someone actually used to give me some extra money, I used to return them, because of course that's your money, your hard-earned money. It doesn't belong to me. So that after like working for 10 years into tech, initial 8 years I was into .NET, so I never thought about doing anything for .NET because it was never open source. It became gradually, because once I left, I think 2015, 2016, it was Microsoft was actually transforming into an open source company, and they started doing it. But meanwhile, when they actually transformed into an open source, I was like moved to Angular and worked in Angular, and then I realized, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I think this is something I was never taught, that you should not get anything for free. So that was my mindset, right? So I started doing this open source contribution. I started donating money to these projects or supporting different developers on GitHub sponsors program. So that's how I started, and then people. I got recognized by the community members, and one of the program manager who is for I think he's DSC lead right now. So I'm sure in case you are part of DSC, you know Siddhant. Anyone?
Yeah, he's our program manager.
Yeah. So Siddhant reached out to me last year, so I'm really thankful to him. I'm not sure from where he found me, but I received a message from Siddhant like on LinkedIn that would you like to apply for GD program? I was like, okay, what is GD program? So I googled for it, and I found it is something related to what I do. So I was like doing open source contribution. I was writing blog posts. I was doing talks. So I applied for it, and eventually I got selected somehow.
So, if you guys have any more questions, please put it in the chat. So, I think many of the people, when they think about open source, they just really think that open source is just for softwares.
Hmm.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, but we do have like for hardware, for example, Arduino. And how can we get started in contributing to that projects? Is it through documentations or is it through designs or something like that?
It's up to you, right? So most of the contributions which I have do, they are not code, they are documentations. So if you see, if you even go to my GitHub profile, you will find most of the PRs are like documentation. So the thing is, like, everyone wants to be famous, and they think if I contribute to code, I will become more famous. It's not like that. It doesn't work like that. So in case you pick up a particular area, for example, docs, right? So I think there is some background noise from somewhere. Yeah, sorry, thank you. So if you think the docs are perfect for you, you can just go ahead and contribute to docs. Even docs need someone to actually help people, right? I mean they also need someone to handle the docs as well. If you just keep adding the features and you never update the docs, what's the point of actually writing new features if people cannot use it easily? So I think docs is something. Then in case you are a tester, go ahead and contribute and write test cases, right? People still go ahead and use Cypress. I think a lot of testers have experience in writing Cypress test cases, or the other thing which you use, Protector. They know Protectors or Selenium, for example. So if you're even a tester, you can also contribute to open source. Even being a program manager or being a business guy, you can also contribute by creating features. If you think there is a new feature you think will be really helpful in this particular project, go ahead and create documentation and suggest them that this particular feature can be implemented. Of course, that's an open source contribution.
That was really great, sir. So, do you guys have any other questions? So, I guess there are no more questions from the participant side.
Cool. So in case you get any questions in future, feel free to actually ping me. I'd love to answer that.
Yeah, sure,
Probably
sir.
yeah.
Uh, so, it was great to have you here. It was a really insightful session, and we got so many of our doubts cleared. And actually, I got to know more about open source, and I think many of our participants did too. That open source is not just about Git and GitHub. There are so many things more than that. Uh, it was a great pleasure having you, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye everyone.
Thank you all for joining us. Shall we stop?